Hello everyone, I'm doing a video for Depression Quest as the whole Zoe Quinn thing has been flaring up all across the internet lately in many communities, including but not limited to Wizard-chan, Reddit, Imgur, Steam, you name it, it's all over the place and it's spreading further and further, and there's a lot of information all over the place. Believe what you want. There's a lot of conflicting information. I don't know what to tell you, who's right, who's wrong. There are a lot of sources I will believe over others, but I'll admit it's opinionated. Information's just all over the place. But I'm finding a lot of the information that you find, whether it's for or against the whole Zoe Quinn fiasco, it's all about who she is as a person, as a character, as what she's doing. It's not about the game itself, the end product, what we are receiving. Video games have become a lot about politics in the last long while. As any Payday fan will tell you with Payday 2's release, EA games, you name it. In the last 5 years, especially, it's just been nothing but politics left and right, devs fighting their publishers, data rights managements, things all over the place. And I'll be totally honest, it's hurting the industry as a whole. It's really harming the products that are coming out in the end, all in the name of money. And I understand that money is the absolute bottom line. It is an industry. That is what the devs and the publishers are there to do, is to create an end product which they can then sell and create revenue off of. It's how they make their living. I get that, but by harming your end user, well, they're not harming the end user, but they are, it's not, the end product isn't to the best of what it could be in the absolute end. And I feel because of this, the politics is getting in the way of the end user's entertainment, and the more entertainment the end user is receiving, the more they will purchase new products, the more they will further fund the industry. If the end user isn't satisfied with the products that are coming out, you will lose sales in the long run. So I feel the end product is always what should be the center focus. Now I understand that here, Depression Quest is entirely free on Steam. It is being released without a price. That's fine. But it's still getting a lot of negative review. I don't know if that can really hold it back in any way. It did officially get greenlit on Steam. For those of you who don't know, smaller indie publishers or smaller groups can submit their games. People will thumbs up or thumbs down, say, would you play this, would you not, whatever. And if enough people say they would play it, the game makes it onto Steam. Depression Quest did get greenlit. The problem I found with this... No, I will get to that later. Right now I want to get into the game itself, as it is receiving a lot of negative review, but like I said earlier, based on her character, who she is. I want to know what the game is. What is it? I've heard a lot about it, but I haven't heard about it. So let's begin. I open, and the first thing I see is this screen. There's a fair amount of text. There's the logo in the top left corner. There's a little bit of a theme playing in the background. It's nice. It's not distracting. Okay, I'll give it that much. At the top of the page, it says, its emotional character is probably most indescribable, except as a sort of double bind in which any and all of the alternatives we associate with human agency sitting or standing, doing or resting, speaking or keeping silent, living or dying are not just unpleasant but literally horrible. David Foster Wallace. And then it gets into the description of the game. Depression Quest is a game that deals with living with depression in a very literal way. This game is not meant to be fun or a lighthearted experience. If you are currently suffering from the illness and are easily triggered, please be aware that this game uses stark depictions of people in very dark places. If you are suicidal, please stop playing this game and visit the suicide prevention hotline to talk to someone. The goal of the game is twofold. Firstly, we want to illustrate as clearly as possible what depression is like, so that it may be better understood by people without depression. Hopefully this can be something to spread awareness and fight against the social stigma and misunderstandings that depression sufferers face. Secondly, our hope is that in presenting as real a simulation of depression as possible, other sufferers will come to know that they are not alone and hopefully derive some measure of comfort from that. It goes without saying that because of the very nature of depression, it is experienced differently by every person who suffers from it. We aren't trying to say that this is the best or most accurate representation, merely that this is an amalgamation of the experiences of the developers and several people close to them. Many of the following encounters deal with issues such as therapy, medication, handling of a love life, and reaching out to support networks. In reality, less than half of depression sufferers actually seek treatment for reasons such as lack of money, perceived personal failing, or public stigma. These things were included in order to touch upon as broad a range as possible, since all these elements can be very important to sufferers of depression, though they will likely not be the experience of most sufferers. It's important to recognize that not everyone with depression is so lucky. Many people with the illness don't have a lot of luxuries that we have in this game. We have written it this way so that we can focus specifically on the illness, which becomes more and more difficult to deal with as the person who has it is less and less well off. The game uses audio as part of the play experience. We encourage you to play with your sound on. Let me turn my sound back up. Thank you for playing. Start with the controls. Up and down to scroll the page, tab select next option, shift tab select previous option, so standard HTML keying, enter confirm action, backspace rewind passage, shift backspace advance passage. Sample option 1. You may use a pointing device keyboard. Okay, so I'll just use a mouse then, just to keep it easy. Enable full screen, disable sound, restart game. Okay, so let's begin. It's early on a Monday morning. You are a mid-20s human being. You are a significant other named Alex, who you are rather fond of, that you have been seeing exclusively for the past few months. The rest of your social circle... Can I click on these blue things? Oh, I see. Okay, so I'll read through all of this before going into the sections. The rest of the social circle consists of a variety of friends and acquaintances, some of whom you met at your day job, which is a little boring but pays the rent. You'd like to be doing more with your life, as would your parents, but you're still in the process of figuring out what that means and how to go about it. You are also dealing with motivational issues that sometimes makes dealing with these things difficult. You feel like this is probably your fault, and on bad days can feel inwardly angry and down on yourself for being lazy, but you're not quite sure how you can break out of it, or how other people deal with these feelings and seem so very functional. You spend a lot of nights fixating on things about this, but never seem to do anything about it other than lose sleep. So already the first impression I'm getting from this game is it seems less of an RPG like it's advertised on the Steam page, but more like a text-based adventure. I don't want to compare it to Eric the Unready. Eric the Unready was a text-based adventure I played as a child, but it was very humorous. So you can see how there's similarities, but there's not. Zork is another good example. general text-based adventure games, but overall this isn't what I would call an RPG, although the very loosest definition of RPG is just role-playing game, in which there's a fictitious character that you control. Your decisions and actions will affect the end result. That's understandable, it fits that definition, but in the whole of the gaming industry, when people hear RPG, they think of a game where you go on an adventure. I guess we're doing that here. Your character gains some form of experience points, levels. They grow in a spreadsheet type of way as well as a character. And given the instance, I'm guessing they're not going to have that spreadsheet level type system that a lot of people were expecting when they saw RPG on this Steam page. So just keep that in mind as we go on. Okay, so before we proceed, let's see what's up with Alex. You met Alex through a mutual friend a few months back. You two hit it off pretty well that first night, and after a series of initially awkward dates, you finally become a couple, much to your surprise and excitement. Alex is 3 months younger than you are, and is currently a student with a part-time job in a broad circle. She's also got a wide variety of interests, and oftentimes you worry that you might be too boring for her, but she has been good at trying to reassure you that she's happy with you. Your relationship consists of a lot of nights watching Netflix when you've both got time off work and she doesn't have classes, with the occasional social outing that she tends to have to talk to you into attending. She tries to be understanding when you are in one of your moods, as she puts it, though you are starting to feel she doesn't understand what it's like for you, and this is a source of tension in your relationship. Coupled with your reluctance and want to go to college parties, this feeds your worry of not being exciting enough for them. So let's see what our social circle is. Your social circle is made up of a few close friends, some of which you've known from high school and some from jobs you've worked. You've also made various acquaintances through reluctantly going to social events with Alex, and you keep in touch with a few friends of friends that you occasionally run into. You have several online friends that you talk to regularly that you feel less guarded with, possibly due to communicating from the safety of being behind your keyboard. You enjoy the low commitment of your friendships since they don't expect very much of you other than to listen and share personal thoughts and experiences. Despite the low commitment, you feel fairly connected with these people and tend to be more honest with them than people you interact with in real life on a day-to-day basis. I'm already getting behind this, actually. You feel incredibly nervous trying to make new friends on your own, and are very good at talking yourself out of going into unfamiliar places or larger social engagements regardless of how much you actually want to attend. Meeting new people stresses you out to a high degree, and this is something you wish you could work past. You admit you have a bad habit of flaking on social engagements, even with longtime friends, and are puzzled as to why some days you just can't force yourself to go see these people that you really do care about. Those that have stuck around long enough to be that close with you understand that this is a thing you sometimes do, and have seemed to more or less accept it even though they chide you for it on occasion. However, you've had friends in the past give up trying to maintain a friendship with you because of this trait, taking your social anxieties as a personal slight, or eventually getting tired of trying to track you down all the time. You feel incredibly guilty about this, but are not quite sure how to change. What's our job? You have a day job, which you feel is really nothing special. You started out receiving minimum wage, but have stayed around long enough to be making enough to support yourself. Okay, so I'm assuming our character is living out on their own, for the most part. The work is dull and unrewarding. The most days you feel like just about anyone could do it. You have a hard time relating to most of your coworkers, so you mostly keep to yourself and get the work done while you're there. There are one or two people you chat with, though you wouldn't consider yourself close with them. A lot of days lately, you have a really hard time getting out of bed and forcing yourself to go in. You're starting to wonder how long you can keep this up. Excuse me again. You'd really like to find another job in your field of interest, but you feel like you are underqualified every time you look at online job postings. Sometimes you think about going back to school, but you would be unsure of how you'd be able to support yourself and wonder if the degree would really help anyways. Okay, so it's a basic entry-level job. We all go through them. They're always our first. It doesn't specify what it is. I'm going to assume a retail clerk or fast food or something along those lines. Let's see what our parents are like. You're one of the few people you know whose parents never got divorced, but you do wonder if they still love each other sometimes. You have an older brother named Malcolm, who's moved across the country with his wife to work a high-paying job. Every major holiday that you see him at, you feel a bit jealous and like the lesser kid despite being genuinely happy to see him. You feel very ashamed of these feelings. Your parents genuinely care about you. This often involves inviting you back to your childhood home for dinner. Okay, so I'm getting the impression that you've moved away. You're in a separate town from your parents. Though your mother thinks you never visit quite enough. You get the impression they don't fully understand you. They want to see you succeed, but don't know why you haven't gone further in life yet because you're so smart and talented. Anytime you've tried to talk to them about your motivation issues, they tell you that the solution is to simply work harder and want it more. Your father is generally more forgiving for your lack of a career path, while your mother seems to think that you're too smart to be in the position you're in. You know they love you and that they're not bad people, but you really feel like a big disappointment sometimes. Okay. So let's continue on to the next step. It's an unseasonably warm Wednesday evening. You've spent the past several hours at work. The past week or so you've found your job motivation flagging more than usual. You've been in a fog practically all day, simply going through the motions without realizing even that you've been doing half the time. And yet time seemed to be moving at half speed. You're so checked out that when your boss approaches you to tell you that it's dead and you can go home early, it barely registers. As you walk home, the streets hiss from the recent rainfall. You know that your significant other will be in classes until late, another couple hours at least. You briefly consider using this serendipitous solitude to catch up on that project you've been working on haphazardly for the past few months. So let's see what our project is. A while back, you and some of your older friends were out at a bar catching up. After liquefying considerably more of your paycheck than was perhaps responsible and ending up thoroughly in your cups, you open up to the only people you really consider yourself close to and end up launching into a drunken tirade about the meaninglessness of your utterly menial job and ultimately your own existence. Having never really seen you in such a state before, your friends were briefly taken aback by your sudden uncharacteristic outburst. One of your friends suggested that you get involved with your hobby on a more regular long-term basis, suggesting that spending your energy on something you actually care about might help you better cope with the shittiness of your 9 to 5. Although you were embarrassed that you let your guard down and you felt self-conscious at seeming to have single-handedly brought the mood down at the table, you convinced yourself on the cab ride home that maybe it would be worth trying out. You began your project some months ago and have miraculously managed to keep at it, though your level of motivation and subsequent effort rises and falls considerably. While you were surprised when you started at how good it felt to actually work on something you were passionate about, lately you've found it hard to muster the energy to really care about even this. As soon as you think about the work that awaits you at home, you can feel the panic creeping in from the back of your brain. Unbidden, all you can think about is how incredibly far behind you are, and the amount of work seems nothing less than insurmountable. By the time you arrive home and change out of your uncomfortable work clothes, the stress is weighing down on you like a heavy, wet wool blanket. The computer seems to be staring you down from your desk. You want to sit down and work, but the mere thought of trying to work sends your stress levels flying. More than anything, you feel suddenly and absolutely exhausted. You feel a strong desire to simply hide in bed. Do you order some food as crossed out? grab a drink and hunker down for a night of work. I see. It's listed there because it is an option that most people would ordinarily select, but it's crossed out as it's not an option for our character. I got it. Reluctantly sit down in your desk, try to make yourself do something, turn on TV telling yourself you just need a quick half hour to unwind from work. Crawl into bed, you're so stressed and overwhelmed you couldn't possibly accomplish anything anyways. You're depressed, interaction is exhausting and you are becoming more and more withdrawn. You are not currently seeing a therapist, you are not currently taking medication. I'm gonna go with number 2, reluctantly sit down. If we don't at least try, we can't make any progress. Make a stop at your fridge, turn your favorite playlist on and sit down and start working. You open the last file you were working on and as soon as your hands touch the keyboard your mind goes blank. All of the motivation and ideas you had when you arrived home vanish in a flash. Your brain seizes up and you don't find yourself physically incapable of any sort of productive thought. You take a break to loosen up, popping open your email inbox, Twitter, and various other internet-based distraction fodder. Frustratingly, this pattern continues throughout the course of the evening. As soon as you try and focus on work, your brain diverts all its energy away from the task at hand. While you keep flipping back to your work, you find the sheer mental effort involved in keeping your brain focused is overwhelming and tiring. A few Twitter arguments, YouTube videos, and sparse amounts of actual work later, your playlist flips back to track 1, and the ice in your glass has all but melted, diluting the last dregs of the Coke you were nursing. You look at the clock and realize that a few hours have passed since you sat down at work, and you've made negligible progress. I can just wake up early tomorrow and catch up, you think to yourself as you climb into bed, even though you know that never actually happens. Okay. I'm pretty sure this doesn't actually relate to the depression at all or anything like that, but I've noticed that I myself, when trying to get my arsing gear to do something, whether it be creative or hands-on or whatever, if I get any idea, if I try to think about it, I often draw blanks myself, but I often get ideas for things in the worst times possible. Not so much worst times possible, but it's at a time that I can in no way actually work on the project, such as I'm at work and I get an idea for something, or I'm just walking home, or I awake from a dream and I think of something. I've found that if I immediately write it down in a place where I will definitely see it, don't write it down and shuffle it off to the side, write it down on the notepad in your phone. I'm sure most smartphones that most people have nowadays have that. Even older phones had a notepad function of some sort. Or if you've got a corkboard by your door or your computer or whatever, put it somewhere you're definitely going to see it on a regular basis so that you don't forget about it. It badgers at you. You see it and see it and see it, and eventually it will click to act on this idea. If something comes to you creatively, put it down. Get it down on paper. Even if you don't act on it now, you can come back to it and use your writing as a prompt. Just something I'm thinking of. I'm not attacking anyone here. I've found that's helped me. Maybe it can help you. We hit next. It's a mild Friday afternoon. So we're skipping Thursday altogether then? Alex calls you from one of her classes telling you that there's going to be a really awesome birthday party tonight at her apartment that one of her roommates is throwing. You've hung out with this roommate a few times with Alex and you get along well enough but aren't particularly close. You don't have work in the morning and you have nothing else in particular to do tonight. You are feeling kind of run down, but you've been fatigued most of the time lately. You mention that you're feeling ill because you're not sure how else to explain those feelings to someone else, and say that you aren't sure that you can make it tonight. There's a second of silence over your phone, but you can swear you can hear the sound of your partner's face fall. She tries to convince you anyways. You haven't seen her this week, and she sounds pretty insistent that you come over. She even drops a few suggestively worded hints that you can stay over with them tonight after the party. What do you do? The struck out answer is shake off your funk and go have a good time with your girlfriend, but again, that is struck out to show that is what a person without depression would most likely do. Our other options are still here. Agree to go, or say that you're really just not feeling well and can't make it. Again, I'm going to go with option 2, because no progress can be made if we don't at least try. You agree to go even though you're really not feeling social. You know it's important to Alex and you'd really like to see her. Seeing her does make you feel better sometimes, and you hope that this is the case tonight, even if it does mean dealing with the usual social anxiety. The time to leave rolls around and you grab your overnight bag. Alex's apartment is a short walk away and there are already people hanging out on the porch. You feel your chest tighten as you approach the building and try to steel your nerves. You quickly find your partner, chatting away with the birthday girl, and Alex immediately lightens up when she sees you. I'm so happy you came. I wasn't sure if you were going to make it. A young man taps her on the shoulder, and she turns back to you to apologize and let you know they have to do something for the party. Alex hands you a beer and plants a kiss on your cheek before going off to deal with whatever came up. As you look around, you don't see anyone else you recognize. So, our struck out option is enthusiastically socialize. But our other options are awkwardly stand in the same spot, unsure of what else to do. Put your bag in your Alex's room and avoid the crowd in there for a while. Cling the back wall, sip your beer, and wait for your girlfriend to return. Proceed to drink in earnest, hoping it makes you feel less uncomfortable. I'm at a loss, I really am. Well, we don't want to leave. That's going to be counterproductive. I'll go with awkwardly stand in place. Maybe someone will approach us or something. As Alex leaves you with the beer, you're unsure of what to do with yourself. Everyone else at the party is sectioned off into smaller groups of people who know each other, and you feel like it might be too rude to butt in on any one of their conversations. As you're looking around, you can tell that you don't really know anyone else at this party. The birthday girl turns to you and thanks you for coming, and you chat with her a little until she is approached by other friends, and she introduces you to them. So, it took a little time, but we eventually got somewhere. You have very little in common with any of them. I spoke too soon. And they all seem to have known each other for a very long time, so naturally you're going to feel like the outsider. However, they're still friendly, albeit a little drunk, and ask you about your life and do the best to include you. You actually start to relax a little, but feel slightly excluded when you're the only one who misses an inside joke about someone's professor. You proceed to make small talk with the group until your girlfriend returns. At the end of the night, as you're falling asleep with Alex, she thanks you again for coming. Half drunk, she confesses that she thought you were going to flake out and was pleasantly surprised when you managed to come out. She says it lovingly, but you're not quite sure how you feel about that statement. Well, it sounds encouraging. It sounds like they're trying. The others are trying to give you opportunities to come out, I guess. You don't want to force someone out of their comfort zone in this situation, but leaving those opportunities open allows them, at least I guess, to see it and potentially reach out and seize the opportunity. It's a little after noon on a muggy Saturday. Your mother has come over for a surprise visit, claiming loudly that she doesn't see you enough, so she decided to invite herself over. As you converse, she walks around your place and you get the distinct impression that you're being inspected. "So what's going on with you lately?" she asks abruptly. Taken somewhat aback by this left fielder, you tell her that you're not sure what she means. She repeats the question, saying that you haven't seemed like yourself lately. She gestures to the dirty dishes piled in the sink and notes the fact that you haven't called or visited in a while. Your reticence only seems to spur her on more. She pressures you, asking if you're having problems at work or with Alex, and you're beginning to feel increasingly battered by her sudden well-meaning by overwhelming inquisition. This is what I was saying about prying someone out of their shell. Under her questions, you become increasingly uncomfortable. You want to be able to explain to her how you've been feeling, but the truth is you're not really sure yourself. Nothing horrific has happened at work or with your significant other or friends or anything like that, but all the same you can't deny that lately you've just felt drained and as though you're not really here. You wish you could tell your mother these things, but she hasn't been approachable about negative emotions in the past. She's the kind of person who holds the opinion that the solution to any problem is to simply try harder and maintain a positive attitude. A stance that has reared its head in past conversations when you've begun to explore the subject with her. You know she's unlikely to be understanding, and you feel the energy drain out of you when you imagine what would happen if you managed to blurt out everything you are feeling. What do? Our striked out option is let her know that you've been feeling down lately and that you appreciate her concern. Try to be honest with her anyways, tell her that everything is fine, and thank her for asking. Change the subject. On one hand, we need to try and reach out. We need to try and do something. In which case, I would want to go with number 2. But on the other hand, if we reach out to the wrong person and they don't understand, they will backlash, and that will hurt. Change the subject is just dodging. I either want to go with 2 or 3. I'll open up to someone else. I'll go with option 3. "It's okay, Mom. Really, thanks for worrying about me." Your mother looks at you from across the room with furrowed brows, and you wonder if the tone in your voice was the least bit convincing. She slightly opens her mouth as though she was about to say something more, but instead she digs through her purse for her cell phone, having apparently decided against it. "Well, as long as you're okay, honey," her voice trails. As your mother returns to what amounts to more or less small talk, you realize that this part of the conversation has happened a lot recently. Someone will express concern for you and ask if you're okay out of seemingly nowhere. You tend to find that it's simpler to just declare that you're okay and find the right words for complicated and murky feelings. Besides, since none of them are in reaction to a specific event, maybe you really are okay and just complaining about nothing anyways. Sometimes when you insist that you're okay to those who ask, you wonder if you're trying to convince them or yourself. It's a lazy Sunday morning. You are idly clicking around online as your phone rings. Sam, a coworker of yours that you are friendly with, asks how you are and makes hurried small talk with you. You typically only talk to her over the phone when one of you needs a shift covered, so it's slightly awkward. You're waiting in anticipation for him to ask you to come in on short notice when he veers the conversation in a completely different direction. "How do you feel about cats?" he asks. "Mine had kittens a few weeks ago, and I'm having an awfully hard time finding a home for the last one of the litter. You don't have any pets, right?" It takes you a moment to process the new information, and you're caught off guard as he begins to earnestly try to sell you on the idea of taking the last kitten off his hands. It's not something you had specifically considered before, and he seems fairly insistent. She's a real sweetheart, really loves people. She's got all her shots already taken care of, and the vet said she's healthy as a horse. I can bring her over by your place tonight if you're interested. You look around your apartment and try to picture a cat in it, and he continually tells you about how cute she is. You tell him that this is all kind of sudden and that you don't have anything for the kitten set up here. Oh, don't worry about that. I can bring over a litter box and food and all that, since you'd really be helping me out in a fix. It's the least I could do. I just don't want to have to put her in a shelter. You can't help but feel like you're being guilt-tripped, but you decide to give it some serious consideration. It does get awfully lonely around your apartment, and it might feel less empty with a cat around. However, since you've been feeling so down, it might not be a good idea to take on the responsibility of a cat, even if they are fairly low maintenance. Take the cat knowing full well that you can take great care of it is struck out. Also struck out is decline. Even though you'd be totally capable of taking care of it, you're not much of a cat person. Become a cat owner, you could use the companionship. Decline, you're not in a good enough place to be taking on more responsibility right now. Decline, you don't like cats. Well, I personally freaking love cats. And possibly the companionship could help us out. I'm gonna go with become a cat owner. Aw, look at that. You accept the offer of the kitten and hang up shortly after making arrangements for when your coworker can drop her off tonight. You're not entirely sure what to expect, and you spend the rest of the afternoon researching cat care online and trying to think of a name. The evening rolls around and you hear a knock at your door, startling you out of reading Wikipedia entirely way too hard. I've fallen into those spirals. You take possession of a small, terrified black and white kitten in a carrier, along with everything you need to start taking care of her. You take her into your bedroom, close the door, and open the door to the carrier excitedly. She cowers in the back of it, and you back off, feeling slightly defeated. You remember what you researched on introducing a kitten to a new home, and leave her alone to go mess around on the computer, hopefully checking over your shoulder every so often to see if she has come out yet. Yes, this is correct. You leave the pet to explore its new territory on its own. She hides inside her carrier, periodically making sorrowful cat howls, long enough for you to start worrying that she already doesn't like you, but by the time you go to bed, she's curled up at the foot of it, eyeing you nervously before falling asleep. Over the next few days, you gain her trust, and she begins affectionately following you around, sleeping on you, and hopping up on you anytime you sit down to do some work. That's bloody adorable. I would love to have that. It's late Friday afternoon, and quitting time is just around the corner. A bright, clear day is giving way to you still temperate evening. You can hear your coworkers all around you anxiously making plans for their evenings and weekends, but you're really looking forward to just going home and resting after what's turned out to be a very long and taxing work week. Just before the end of your shift, you get a call from Alex. It seems a group of your mutual friends are heading out to a nearby pub for dinner and drinks to celebrate the end of the week, and they want to know if you'd like to come along. You tentatively tell her that you're emotionally exhausted from the work week, and a social outing like that would just take too much out of you today. You encourage her to go and have a good time, since you know it's been a while since she's gone out with friends, but the effort feels futile since you know that she isn't going to go without you. A couple hours later, the two of you find yourselves in a familiar position, on the couch, watching comedy shows on Netflix, a box of pizza on the coffee table in front of you. As you look across the couch at her, you start to feel anxious. You feel bad about effectively forcing the two of you to stay in tonight again. While you are always appreciative of your partner's efforts to take your feelings into account and help make sure you're socially comfortable, you sincerely worry that you're holding her back from enjoying a more fulfilling relationship. While she does seem to enjoy spending time with you, as the two of you sit in comfortable, almost contented silence watching old shows you've each seen 2 or 3 times before, your ever-increasing fear that your relationship is becoming one-sided weighs more and more heavily on you. You feel more than ever like a burden or a ward to her, and it's virtually impossible for you to see what value you could possibly offer to her in return. Worst of all, this nagging fear has made you feel more self-conscious than ever, withdrawing ever inwards, and you've started to pull away even from Alex herself. Our striked out options are, you know, despite the bad times, your girlfriend sincerely loves you. Relationships are a two-way street, and you resolve to always be there for her like she has been for you. Tell Alex how important she is to you and enjoy your evening. Our actual options are, ask Alex if she's happy with your relationship, or don't say anything. You're already worried about her being upset with you. I'm gonna need some whiskey after this one. It sounds like she does really care for us in our situation. So I'm not going to outright blatantly ask her. I'm going to go with don't say anything. This is far from the first time you would have had this conversation with her, and it's one that plays out the same way every time. Okay, in that instance, it would have just been beating a dead horse anyway, so I think I went with the right direction. You explain your fears of being worthless. She tries to tell you that she doesn't see you that way. You insist that she is biased or just being nice to you because she's your girlfriend. I don't necessarily agree, because she can always not be your girlfriend. There's nothing locking her in that position. And she gets frustrated. I know that feeling. It never resolves. Nothing new is ever said, and rarely do you feel reassured by it. Occasionally she tries to broach the subject, trying to discover why you feel like this about yourself. This always makes you feel nervous. You're sometimes convinced that the only reason she's still with you is because she doesn't know how awful you really are. As time has gone on, you've gotten more comfortable trying to express bits and pieces of your insecurities to her, but it still causes you to feel very on guard, and it's not a conversation you can have for too long without worrying you're going to scare her away. The weight of an unspoken, unresolved issue in your relationship joins you in the room for a while, but you dare not pick at it for the rest of the night. It's a breezy Sunday afternoon. You've allowed Amanda, an old friend from school that is in town for the weekend, to talk you into leaving the house for coffee and catch up. You meet her in a small cafe and talk about what you've been up to since you've last seen each other, and you can't help but feel like they're a lot more accomplished and interesting than you are while listening to them talk about their life after school. When it's your turn to brief them on your activities, you feel anxious and ashamed that, given a very abbreviated version, you try to talk about your job as little as possible, and you feel incredibly boring while you describe it, despite her expressing sincere interest in you and your life. Amanda has known you for long enough to read your mood and tone of voice. She leans into you to ask a question while gently touching your hand, a look of genuine concern on her face. What's wrong? Do you suggest a change of location and confide in her honestly? Is our striked out option. Test the waters a little and open up, hoping she'll understand. Insist that nothing is wrong and change the subject. Defensively ask what she means by that. Notice that your hands are shaking. Given as I didn't open up to Mother, because I didn't think she would be the correct person to open up to, let's take a gamble with Amanda. I'm gonna test the waters. Though you find it hard to lay out how you're feeling lately to other people, you decide to test the waters and open up to Amanda. She's always been easy to talk to, and you feel like it's possible that she might be understanding of what's been going on with you, even if you think it doesn't make sense sometimes. You begin to dance around the subject, dipping your toe into the pool to test the water. Surprisingly, she catches on quickly and is even able to guess what you may say next. She asks the right questions, leading to elaborate on your emotional state. You apologize profusely the entire time, feeling like you're being obnoxious, and she reassures you that you aren't burdening her. Excuse me. Amanda reveals to you that her mother suffers from clinical depression, and that she has spent many nights talking her through very similar feelings. She mentions that therapy and medication have helped her tremendously, and suggests you give it a try. You fight it and feel somewhat like a charity case, but she tells you that she'll get the number of her mother's therapist and email it to you as soon as she can. Afterward, conversation drifts back to small talk and shared hobbies, and you spend a pleasant afternoon together. For the rest of the day, you find yourself wondering if therapy or medication can really help you, if you have an illness, or you are simply complaining too much, and remember horror stories you've heard about antidepressants. You're not sure about what you'll do if she remembers to email you the number for the therapist, and you secretly hope that she'll forget about it so you can avoid dealing with it at all. It's a glaringly sunny Monday, and one of the few days that your brother Malcolm is in town and free long enough for you two to actually see each other. You have a dental appointment that day, but you make plans for him to pick you up afterwards. Your appointment takes a little longer than expected because your dentist tells you that you've started grinding your teeth in your sleep to a worrying degree, given how nearly everything in your life has been feeling enormous and stressful lately. This doesn't come as a surprise to you. He suggests that you try to reduce your stress levels and fits you for a night guard. It feels awkward and too big for your mouth, and you feel embarrassed looking at your puffed out face in the mirror with it. You finish up your appointment in a hurry and leave about half an hour overdue for meeting your always punctual brother in the parking lot. You finish up as quickly as possible and leave the building to scan the parking lot for your brother's car, but you don't see his old Civic anywhere. You pass by a blue Camaro and jump as it beeps at you, causing you to jump in surprise. It takes you a moment for two to realize, but it's Malcolm in the driver's seat. You hop in the passenger seat and compliment him on his new ride, and he mentions that it's a perk of a promotion he's recently obtained at work. He starts telling you about how much more money he's making, how his career's really taking off, and how he's starting to look at houses with his wife soon. You clutch the bag containing the night guard in your hand and feel yourself clench your teeth as you think of your crummy apartment and how long it's been since you've been able to take a day off work without having to worry about making ends meet. He's only 2 years older than you, but it feels like he's eons ahead of you in every other aspect of your lives. So, he asks, how did your appointment go? Did you get drilled full of holes or what? A sense of shame creeps over you. Laugh about your dorky night guard with your brother is crossed out. It seems we're pretty close with our brother, and he sounds kind of cool. Maybe I should tell him about the night guard and why you need it. I'm gonna try it. Actually, I guess I've been grinding my teeth in my sleep too much. Oh yeah, Malcolm says, is that a stress thing? Yeah, I guess I've been having kind of a hard time lately. I'm sorry to hear that, kiddo. Malcolm glances at you. You stare out the window, feeling suddenly self-conscious. As you watch houses and cars zip by, he asks, anything you want to talk about? I don't know, it's hard to talk about. Trying to figure out where to start feels like trying to pin down something flying around in your head. Except it's one of millions of tiny bits of static flying around in there. Hence the static filter on the images, I'm guessing. It's more than talking about specific events, because there are times you feel miserable without any specific catalyst to point to. It's a constant din of noise in the back of your head that never goes away. It only ever gets turned down. You try to explain all this to Malcolm, and he asks a lot of questions without judgment in an effort to help you give words to this jumbled up mass of negative emotion. The two of you end up getting takeout and going back to your place and talk late into the night. Your kitten takes a liking to him really quickly, and despite the serious conversation going on around her, she rolls around between the two of you. After a long back and forth, he asks, is there anything I can do to help you with this? Don't tell Mom, okay? Yeah, she wouldn't get it, he replies with a slight laugh. Does talking about it help? Sometimes, kind of. Well, okay. Know that you can call me anytime you need. He rests one of his enormous hands on your shoulder. You'll get through this, kiddo. It's a dry Sunday morning. You grab your morning coffee and scoot your rapidly growing kitten off your office chair, and despite her protests, sit down at your desk to check your email. A new message pops up in your inbox almost as soon as you do. It's from Amanda, and you remember your meeting in the cafe and awkwardly bring up your feelings to her. Hey, sorry it's been a few weeks. I meant to get this to you sooner, but it took a while for me to get a hold of my folks back home. Dad told me to say hi, by the way. Anyway, I remembered what we talked about the last time I saw you, and I hope you aren't insulted, but I asked my mom for the number for her therapist. Don't worry, I didn't tell her who it was for. I think she's worried about me now, though. Haha. Anyway, the number is... It's a really good office. You should look into it. Talking to someone never hurts. If you're worried about money, don't be. They're one of the few that has a really good sliding scale fee system and won't charge you what you can't afford. I hope you're feeling better. It was really nice to see you again. A. It's still early enough that you could call and make an appointment today. Your kitten curls up on your lap as you consider what to do. Call the number. You're looking forward to the help you think they can offer is a crossed out option. Try your luck and call the number, even though the mere thought of talking to someone makes you anxious. She cared enough to send it to you after all. Sleep on it and see how you're feeling in the morning. You're not keen on the idea at all, but you don't want to disappoint Amanda. Close the email without thinking more of it. This has been embarrassing enough already. I'm gonna go with try your luck and call the number. The extra anxiety is probably not worth it on this, but... well... Yeah, let's go for it. Read through Amanda's email 2 or 3 times, and then sit and stare on your computer for a while. While the memory of that uncomfortable conversation makes you feel newly embarrassed and self-conscious, part of you is also encouraged by the fact that she cared enough to get back to you at all. Sitting in front of your computer, you start to question things like whether or not Amanda sent you this number out of pity or perhaps some sense of obligation after having listened to you. You question her motives and the validity of her concern, and whether or not you think seeing a therapist would even be helpful. Yet almost unconsciously, you reach for your phone, and before you realize what's happening, you're listening to the therapist's line ring. Before you can bring yourself to hang up, you're listening to the slightly clinical but not unpleasant voice of the receptionist ask how she can help you. I'd like to make an appointment with the doctor, you manage to stammer out. The conversation is quick and not nearly as unpleasant as you were fearing, and quicker than you can say Freudian slip, you've scheduled an appointment. Quicker than you realized, appointment day rolls around. What do? Go to the office is crossed out. Well... I can see where the frustration's coming in now. Come this far, I'm gonna go with number 2. You have your first session with the new therapist, Dr. Susan Melville, a tall woman in her mid-40s with a disarming demeanor and patient eyes, with the start of the slightest smile lines. She makes you feel comfortable fairly easy, which is a pleasant surprise after all your anxiety over the appointment. As you leave, you make a second appointment. You're still skeptical about all this, but you figure you might as well see where this goes. The hardest part of it was taking the first step. You're still not sure if and how you're going to tell your family or your partner, but you figure you'll deal with that when the time comes. Either way, you feel relieved that you managed to see this through instead of being paralyzed with worry over it. Even if nothing comes out, you did something you said you would instead of flaking out or running away. I'm no Shinji. You're emotionally exhausted when you get home and collapse into bed. You sleep better that night than you have in a week, and you're not sure if it's because you were so tired when you got home or if it's because of the therapist. It is early on a Wednesday morning. Lately, you've developed a nasty habit of waking up 10-20 minutes before your alarm rings, and unfortunately today is no exception. You lay in bed, each minute ticking closer and closer to wake-up time and passing on a swelling wave of ever-encroaching dread. Sooner than you would like, your alarm blares with caustic inevitability. You frantically pound the snooze button and then retreat under your blankets as if the warmth of your comforter can shield you from the passage of time. Yeah, I felt that one. You almost always have difficulty rising from bed, but today that simple task seems nothing short of Herculean. After several snooze cycles, you decide that you just can't deal with work today. You're incapable of even rousing yourself from bed, let alone going into work, and having to force yourself through a work day, not to mention you've always snoozed so many times that it would be impossible to make it in on time now anyways. What do? Hop out of bed and start getting ready for work. You'll be late, but it's better than not going in at all. Head into work, at least you can leave early if it gets too unbearable. Call your boss and tell him you're sick and won't be in today. Oh, hey! I went from severely to moderately. I went through a few stressful things in the last little bit. On one hand, I want to call in sick and just take it easy. On the other hand, I don't know if that calling in sick is going to cause me to get in a load of shit and create even more stress. Let's go with head in. In spite of the fact that your body is actively fighting you literally every step of the way, you somehow manage to drag yourself out of bed and make your way into work. Surprisingly, you end up only being about 5 minutes late and nobody seems to notice or care. Though when you woke up, the simple act of being even physically present at your job seemed like an impossibility. You were surprised at your own ability to push on through the day. While you are far from enjoying or indeed even really coping with the dullness of your job today, you seem to have slipped into a trance-like state of automation, and time is nevertheless passing. Yeah, I felt that one. Eventually, the end of the day rolls around and you head home, utterly exhausted, but at the same time almost proud of yourself for having to stuck it out. You are definitely still depressed, but things are getting better. Whatever you're doing seems to be working. You really feel like you're taking steps to affect positive change in your life. You now seem to enjoy seeing your therapist. Between giving you a chance to talk things out and the CBT techniques she shares with you, you find your sessions extremely helpful. You are not currently taking medication for your depression. It's 2 a.m. on a Sunday and you have work in the morning. You roll over to see the sickly green glow of the time displayed on your LED alarm clock and let out an exasperated sigh. You've been trying to fall asleep for over 3 hours now, to no avail. Every time your head hits the pillow, you're overcome with anxious thoughts that wrap themselves around each other. Worries about your job lead to worries about your future, lead to worries about your very identity, and you're unable to shake them off long enough to doze off. Your eyes won't even stay shut as your mind races through imagined scenarios going horribly wrong, which you promptly attribute to your general worthlessness. Your thoughts run too fast for you to come to a satisfying conclusion on any one of them. Your room is completely silent, but the silence has given way to a loud static noise rattling around inside your head. Your heart beats loudly and you worry it's beating a little too fast. You worry that if you focus too strongly on your racing heart, you'll freak out yourself hard enough that you have a heart attack. You have to be awake for work in a mere 8 hours, and you know that your work is so much worse on only a few hours of sleep. What do? Our crossed out options are all force yourself to sleep, go to bed, it shouldn't be that hard, just close your eyes and let it happen. Why won't your thoughts back off for 5 seconds? Snap out of it, what's wrong with you? Why can't you stop stressing out for 5 seconds? You're probably going into work tomorrow exhausted and fuck everything up and get fired. Our only option is go to your computer. Sleep is clearly not happening no matter how long you lay here. You get out of bed and head to your desk. Laying in bed with nothing but your thoughts to keep you company makes you feel like you're going insane. The harshness of the light coming from the screen makes you squint as you turn it on. Despite how often you find yourself in this exact situation, there have been so many nights lately just like this. As you begin reading a news story, an online friend of yours IMs you. "You're up late again, I see." "Yeah, can't sleep. Again." "Think nig too much again?" "Thinking." You guessed it. Want to talk about it? You end up talking with Attic for quite some time about how you've been feeling. He's always been easy to talk to about personal matters, but the added security of talking online helps. Being able to rethink what you say as you type it out and check it before you send it out helps you gather your thoughts, and you find it less intimidating in a way to type it all into a prompt than say it out loud. I don't want to be that guy who thinks they can diagnose something because I can read a Wikipedia article. But it kind of sounds like you might have depression. You should talk to someone about that, like a doctor. You pause. Are you really that transparent? Or is it that you've gotten used to talking about your feelings at this point? Your insomnia makes you a little paranoid, but you shake it off. We can do some research to see if there's a good doctor near you. It's like you're going back to sleep anytime soon anyways. Might as well do something while you're awake. Our crossed out option is... This is just a low night. I'm normally able to sleep and don't have depression, but thank you for your concern. Our actual options are no, that's okay, or actually I have talked to someone about it. There's no point in hiding it, really, if we're opening up to this guy already. Oh, okay. I'm glad you're taking that step. I've heard that's not an easy one. I know people kind of suck at understanding this sort of stuff sometimes, but there's nothing wrong with having depression. You wouldn't be ashamed to have bronchitis or something, so there's no reason to be ashamed if it's your brain that's sick instead. Spend a few more minutes talking with Attic about your therapy and your feelings about it. He's incredibly supportive, and you're happy to find that you have a confidant that understands your illness and is willing to lend an ear when you're having nights like this. A little while later you fall back to bed, kitten in tow, and find it easier to drift off to sleep. Even in therapy, you know you're still gonna have nights like these sometimes. It's good to know you have a friend who will help carry you through them. It's a chilly Thursday night and you've just gotten off work. This has felt like one of the longest days you've faced in recent memory. Even though nothing exceptional has happened, a ton of minor things kept going wrong, and coworkers had tried your patience throughout the day. You consider leaving work early, but the last thing you want to do is deal with the insufferable boss on top of everything else. You're lost in thought on the commute home, but your feelings of frustration both with your life and the world around you blind you as you run into minor annoyances like someone bumping into you really hard as they walk by. By the time you get home, you're exhausted and remember that these feelings were the ones you identified as a negative feedback loop with your therapist. These pent-up feelings aren't dying down and are eating at you. You open your front door and stare at your apartment. An overwhelming feeling of exhaustion overcomes you, and you feel like your energy levels are low enough that you'd likely settle into a single activity tonight. What do you do? Our struck out option is just shake off your bad mood and do something fun for the rest of the evening. Or reach out to someone close to you. Don't burden anyone with your problems. Distract yourself. I can understand the logic behind both of those. But it seems people are more than eager to help us. Let's go with reach out. Your head feels too noisy and you need to trade it for some actual conversation. Your therapist did say that it was important to reach out to your support network, so you might as well give it a shot. Who do you call?
We have all 4 options this time, none are striked out. Her coworker Sam, he's friendly enough and could be a good distraction. Your mother, she unconditionally loves you, even if she doesn't always understand you. Alex, she's your girlfriend, or Malcolm, he's family and fun to talk to. I don't really want to go with those first 2. Malcolm said we could call him any time if we need. Alex we haven't reached out to yet. I don't want to gamble. Malcolm, we know, is a good choice, so we'll go with him. Remembering the conversation the 2 of you had when you were given the night guard, you recall that your brother had told you to call him if you ever needed to on days like this. The phone rings 3 times before his wife picks up, and she tells you he's away on business right now. You redial his cell phone and it goes straight to voicemail. Feeling defeated, you hang up and lay in bed, thoughts gnawing at you as you do. You feel selfish for trying to reach out to him while he's busy in the first place. He's always so busy and he's an important person to so many people. You, on the other hand, are laying on your bed in a crappy apartment feeling sorry for yourself. Your thoughts turn to how, if you were to just vanish, you feel like no one would notice for days, and when you did, there wouldn't be too many negative consequences for anyone. You're not in charge of anything important. You're distant from your friends, so who would even notice? Your thoughts are interrupted when your phone rings by your phone ringing next to your head. It's Malcolm. Hey kiddo, I'm sorry I missed your call. I was in a tunnel on the way back to my hotel. How's it going? He enthusiastically greets you. Although you feel awkward about it, you talk to your older brother about how you're feeling and what your condition is doing to you right now. The 2 of you talk on the phone for a good long time, and he proves himself to be an excellent listener and very skilled at finding the perfect times to lighten the mood with a joke without seeming that he's making fun of you or doesn't take your feelings seriously. He reminds you that you can call him any time that you need to let off some steam. You say your goodbyes, and you find that even though you ended up in tears 1 or 2 times in explaining things, the whole conversation had done a lot to get you into a better headspace. Alright, so I've noticed when the depression state gets a little bit better, it doesn't lose, but this static background filter, it diminishes. It's still there, but it's very faint. It's on this one too, but on this medication one, it's very apparent. I think there was a point there where it stepped back down to this level of filter, but I was able to quickly bring it back to a faint. It is an utterly nondescript Wednesday afternoon, the type of afternoon that would completely fade from memory unless one made an active effort to preserve it. As has become routine on Wednesdays, you are sitting on the couch in Dr. Melville's office. To your mild surprise, she begins the session by breaking her characteristic therapist's silence and begins speaking up right away. I wanted to start by saying I think it's great that you decided to come see me. It's an incredibly important first step, she begins. I wanted to take some time today to talk to you about the possibility of supplementing or substituting your treatment with medication. The mention of medication makes your ears perk up and you feel your heart rate increasing. She continues. Many people find adding a pharmacological element to their treatment to be very helpful, and some even prefer to take drugs, completely eliminating their need to visit a therapist at all, providing you rely on your support network and are still reaching out to people. I would prefer it if we kept talking, should you choose to start medication, so that I can monitor your progress and adjust as needed, but the choice is ultimately yours. I just wanted to run this option by you to gauge what your thoughts on this matter might be. Dr. Melville has just given you a lot to think about. What do you do? Our options are accept a prescription as a way to augment your therapy. Tell her you'd like to try drugs instead of therapy. These weekly sessions have always made you more than a little uncomfortable. The thought of messing with your brain chemicals makes you uneasy. You'll stick with the therapy. This whole therapy thing has always overwhelmed you, and this is the final straw. You're done with both. not gonna lie, the thought of any external drugs has kind of scared me myself. But I'm definitely not canceling the therapy. That seems to be a good, effective, and still clean way to deal with the problem. So I'm definitely not going to quit the therapy. But it's a matter of whether or not I want to start taking the drugs on top of the therapy. Perhaps with the supplement of the medication, it can help us get over those extra lumps, get us back to sleep on time, and with a better rested body we can think more clearly, think properly, make better informed decisions, and perhaps wean back off the medication? I'm going to accept a prescription as a way to augment your therapy. You think the matter over long and hard. It's strange to think that recently none of this sort of thing was even on your radar. And here you are now being asked to make a decision about it. You're both skeptical and nervous, still getting over the initial shock of even just talking to a therapist. Still, over the years you've done enough entry-level reading on the subject to know that if it does help, at least it probably won't hurt, right? After an intense and protracted period of internal vacillation, you decide to bite the bullet and go for it. You tell Dr. Melville that you'd like to try the medication in addition to your therapy, and you spend about half an hour going over what you'll be taking and what you should expect from it. Thinking back on the decision later, you're pretty sure you had your fists tightly clenched the whole way through. Okay, so now that you have been taking your medication regularly, and while you were skeptical at first, it's hard to argue with the fact that you're feeling better than you have in a long time. And the filter in the background has weakened. Now, this is a controversial point. I touched on this in high school. The question is the medication truly helping, or is it a false front? Is it... And there's no doubt that it's helping to chase away any thoughts of suicide, it's helping people sleep, it's helping in that way. But when creating, by using a medically induced mood, is it our mood at all? Or is it just a mood using you as a shell, is it truly you anymore? It's a Wednesday evening and you're visiting at your parents' house for a holiday. It's one of the handful of times during the year you drive out to visit your old hometown, and you've seen random people you had gone to school with around town. Whenever bumping into them, the usual short versions of what you've done since graduating are exchanged. Excuse me. You've gone through a few of these today and have been very aware on how much you feel you haven't accomplished. When you were in high school, you had much larger plans, and you feel like you've failed to manifest most of them. Even if you had managed to, you've largely lost interest in what you thought you wanted to do growing up. Now you're not really sure what you want to do, and you felt like you're lacking the ambition to drive to figure it out. Everyone you've caught up with seems so much happier than you, like they've got their lives all figured out, and you kind of been feeling like a failure by comparison. No one's gonna tell you your downfalls. If you bump into an old friend or acquaintance or whatever from high school, they're not gonna say, oh yeah, I'm an absolute total failure and my life's spiraling out of control. They're obviously going to make their lives sound much better than it is, or even perhaps just do so in an attempt to one-up you, or feel like they've beaten you, or I feel like they're better off than someone else. Your brother Malcolm arrives with his wife in tow shortly before you all sit down to dinner. He's been traveling for his job lately, and you haven't seen him since the day he picked you up from the dentist. Your parents haven't seen him since before then. During dinner, they all catch up, and Malcolm talks about the amazing things he's done on the road. Your mother turns to you and asks what you've been up to since you've seen them last. Oh, same old, you say. Nothing really new going on. Your mother makes a face. Oh, nothing new? How long are you planning on staying at that job of yours? What do you say? Our striked out option is tell them about the exciting new job you're gunning for. Lie, tell them what they want to hear, that you're actively looking for a more prestigious position. Admit that you don't know what you want to do, or excuse yourself to the bathroom. Again, I'm not going to go with number 4 because it's simply dodging. Admit you don't know what you want to do. Parents don't seem like the right people to reach out to in this situation. And even though we're in the middle of fighting a battle, we are making progress in it. Perhaps once we've gotten over the hump, then we will explain to the parents what had happened and proceed from there. So I'm going to lie in this situation. Oh, I'm asking for a raise soon, you mumble. I'm shopping around for a better position too. Your mom lights up. Oh, that's great, honey. They'd be crazy not to give it to you. Conversation turns to other subjects as you stare at your plate. You hate lying to them, but you honestly feel like your parents don't even know you sometimes. Every time you've tested the waters in the past, you come away from it feeling like you can't get through to them, like you're speaking a different language. Trying to fight through that takes so much effort and ever feels like it even works. You just don't have the energy to try right now. Even though you spend the rest of the night surrounded by your family, you feel like an alien. You retreat into your thoughts and get very quiet for the remainder of the night. As you're leaving, Malcolm takes you aside and gives you a big hug. Don't let Mom get to you, okay? I love you, kiddo. It's a rainy night. You are hurrying through the rain to Alex's apartment at her behest. Though your pace is quick, the rain is steadily soaking up your pant leg as you traverse the town, and it's darkening your already poor mood. The call came while you were at home after a day of dealing with abnormally frustrating people. You'd spent the afternoon trying to unwind and get some work on your project done. Alex called and interrupted one of your try to make progress, get frustrated not making progress, have a harder time making progress due to frustration, repeat. Loops. And you haven't fully shaken off the feeling of being annoyed with yourself from it yet. You knock on her door, and on the third knock, hear her voice call from further in the apartment to come on in. As you cross the threshold, dripping rainwater all the way, you notice that the lights are turned down very low in the apartment. You squint to navigate it as you clutch onto your dear umbrella, but end up hitting your shin on a side table, mumbling a profanity under your breath. You barely make out Alex emerging from the hallway clad in what looks to be a robe with the bare skin of her leg peering out underneath. Why don't you come in and warm up, she says in her designated slightly cheesy, sexy voice. After a beat of silence, she states more naturally, my roommates are out of town this weekend, so I thought it might be nice to have a little fun while they're away. You appreciate your affection, but you're too wrapped up in your own negative feedback loops to be in the mood right now. What do you do? Let go of your stress and be intimate with your girlfriend. Try to unwind with her before getting physical. Suggest you do something else instead. Tell her you're not in the mood. Delving straight into it may be too much, but dodging it altogether doesn't sound good either. Let's go with try to unwind with her before getting physical. You look at her standing, barely lit, and notice there's a few candles scattered around the apartment. It occurs to you that she has tried to make this night special for the two of you. Even though you have a tight knot of antisocial frustration in your stomach, seeing how much she cares makes you want to try to melt it away so you can show her how much you care that she's gone through all this trouble. However, you desperately need to shift gears first before that's even possible. You look amazing. Let's have a drink together, you suggest, hoping that this will give you the push you need to get in the mood. You go into the kitchen and pour the two of you drinks, trying to focus on letting go of your bad mood. You sit down on the couch next to her and she cuddles up to you instantly. "What should we toast to?" she asks as she takes her drink. You think for a moment, passing up the cheesy to us option. You say what's on your mind, letting go of your bad day. "To tonight." The two of you cheers, and you ask her about her day. Conversation turns flirtatious, and the two of you find yourself in the bedroom shortly after. You find that you're having trouble getting into things physically with her, and remember that diminished arousal was a possible side effect of your medication. You'd hoped that you were part of the population that wouldn't be affected by it, but it seems as though this was not the case. However, you're still able to enjoy the closeness with Alex and fall asleep together happily. It's an early winter evening, and even though it's not particularly late, this time of the year has lent the sky an almost prematurely darkened cast. Day after day, just like today, you trudge home from your job and you have increasingly come to hate. On this day, your job misery seems to have reached critical mass, and not even shedding your rain-laden and uncomfortable work clothes helps you to unwind from your workday. You collapse on the couch, blank and numb. While your job always seemed to just be an unpleasant reality of existence, it was a position you sort of fell into unexpectedly, never intending to work there long term, and it's getting harder and harder to keep it up. While it's certainly not your dream job, you've always just sort of stuck it out of necessity before, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to do that. Though you couldn't even begin to imagine what else you could do, you find yourself face to face with a question you just can't ignore. Is your complacency worth the price of this level of misery? What do you do? Get proactive, polish off your resume, and start looking for other jobs to send feelers out to is our struck out option. Try and at least be productive by focusing your efforts on your project tonight. Aimlessly look through classifieds for another job. Turn on the TV and let your mind go blank. Although I want to work on the project, that has proven to be fruitless. Watching TV is going to do nothing but leave us in the rut. Aimlessly look through classifieds for another job isn't going to find us a job of higher caliber without polishing off the resume, which is our struck out option. Let's take another stab at the project. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll work. You sit down at your computer to blow off some steam, but are surprised to find your thoughts drifting to your long neglected project. You talk yourself into opening it up and taking a look for the first time in what must be weeks. For whatever reason, your anger that you've been feeling towards your day job seems to have converted into pure passion, as you seem to be overflowing with ideas tonight. It's as if you've got a build-up of ideas that just haven't gotten out, and now you're in the zone. While you don't get an unnatural amount of work done, you do work for a solid couple hours, and it really feels great. What's more, you share some stuff across your social media networks, and you receive quite a bit of positive feedback, which makes you feel great. When you go top bed that night, you tell yourself that your job may suck, but at least you've got something you really care about that you can put effort into and feel really good about yourself. In fact, as you're falling asleep, you can barely even remember your workday. You are doing well. You may still have your bad days, but you now effective ways to deal with them, and you don't get nearly as low as you used to or for as long. Still visit our therapist. We are taking medication regularly. It's a little past 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night. You're at your computer, frustration levels peaked, rubbing your eyes and sighing heavily. You're working on a project from your job that has you stretched to wit's end trying to meet a looming deadline, and as it lurks closer and closer, you are seriously doubting your ability to get it done. You've dragging your feet a little at work due to your complete lack of energy lately, in spite of wanting to do a good job. You find yourself unable to push past it and feel horribly useless for it. You slide your hands off your face and look at the screen as it beeps at you. Hey, are you there? I really need to talk to someone about something. You feel like you're getting nowhere with your current task and could probably use a break. However, you know that you have a history of getting distracted and then losing motivation to pick something back up again afterwards. Multitask is struck out. I don't know how effective it would be anyways, because Attic was there for us. We need to be there for him. And multitasking would divide our attention. We've been this effective this far. Let's take a break and let's answer Attic. You're feeling like you've hit a brick wall with your task, so why not take a break and help out a friend. Hey, what's up? Oh good, you're there. I just found out I got cheated on. I don't know what to do. Oh no, that's horrible. The two of you talk for a long time and you lend a shoulder to your friend. You give him space to rant, to cry, and most importantly, be able to voice his inner turmoil. You give him your full attention and talk him through what his options are for what he does next. You keep him from doing something rash, and the two of you decide it's best for him to sleep on it before doing anything at all. Exhausted, he departs for bed and thanks you for being there to talk with him. As you close the IM window, you feel horribly sorry for your friend, but happy that you were able to help. It serves as a tangible reminder to you that you're capable of being useful to someone instead of solely being a mess that needs everyone else's help. You boot up your work project and find that you're suddenly able to get some solid progress done on it that night. So we were able to reboot the project without much problem. We were able to help someone else and prove to ourselves that we do have at least a little self-worth. Hang on. It's a sunny Saturday afternoon. You're in deep thought on the way home from therapy. However, you notice this time that you're not in the same negative feedback loops you usually get trapped in when being this introspective. You realize that although you still have your bad days, your lows aren't quite as low as they used to be. Your antidepressants bottle rolls across your dashboard as you take a left turn. You've been on this medication for quite a while now after a period of trying a few different kinds. Though you still have minor side effects, they've overall become an unnoticed part of your life. You feel as if your life has generally changed for the better recently, and you begin to wonder if you need them anymore. You don't feel as much despair or hopelessness, and you hate yourself a lot less these days. Maybe it's time to stop taking these, you think. I seem to not really need them anymore. Well, on top of the argument I earlier made about perhaps medication being a false front, it also seems we're getting a bit of whiskey dick off these things. But the game blatantly tells us we are doing better because of them. We're still going to therapy. Maybe we can go back on them if we take a break off, see how it goes, take a trial period. We'll see what happens. Despite it becoming a part of your routine, the next day you stop yourself from taking the tiny pill in the morning as per usual. The side effects have been an annoyance, and you are pretty convinced that you no longer need them. The rest of the day goes by as normal, and you believe that you have made the correct choice. However, as time goes on, the familiar pit of despair in the back of your mind reopens and reaches out to pull you back in. You feel the familiar self-hatred and anxiety wrap itself around your brain, choking it. All of this feels much worse than the side effects of the medication, so you resume taking it and desperately wait for the readjustment period to be over. Okay, so I did make the wrong decision in this instance. We didn't throw them out. We could go back on them. It was just a stab. You'll not make this mistake again. Dr. Melville tells you this is a common thing for depression sufferers to experience. They feel better, so they discard the medication, believing that they're cured. However, it was just a sign that the medication was doing its job. She reminds you that depression is a chronic mental illness that needs proper treatment, and she asks you to consult her before augmenting your medication schedule in the future. It's yet another sleepless Thursday night. You're at Alex's apartment, wide awake in bed as she's sleeping peacefully beside you. She fell asleep hours ago, and you've been laying here unable to shut your brain up long enough to fall asleep, and you've added the feeling of insecurity about your relationship to the rest of the noise in your head keeping you up tonight. It was kind of a tense night between the two of you. You arrived after a stressful day at work, and as you made dinner together, you barely said a word. You were stuck in your own head and had a hard time really being present with her as your thoughts turned to all of the ways you feel like you're deficient at being a good person and beating yourself up mentally for each one. She told you she could tell you were in one of your moods and said that she wouldn't push you, but missed talking to you as the two of you sat on the couch together. You wanted to tell her how much you love her, but you couldn't make the words come out right and ended up sounding defensive instead. As you lay there, next to her now, you trace your fingers across her arm just lightly enough to not wake her. You still haven't explained your depression to her, or how you've started seeing a therapist, or that you've been taking medication, and it's starting to feel more and more like a secret you're keeping instead of something she simply doesn't know about yet. It's becoming more and more apparent that it's impacting your relationship with her, and you feel guilty about this. However, you're also terrified that if she knew exactly how fucked up you are, that she would leave you. You already worry that she's only with you because she doesn't realize how terrible of a person you are yet, and you're afraid that this would be the final thing to expose you. She stirs in her sleep and squints as she opens her eyes. With the confusion that comes with waking up, she asks you if you're awake, and then if everything's okay. She needs to know, but I don't know if this is the right time. The longer we wait, the harder it's gonna get. Let's just tell her. You feel like a jerk for accidentally waking her up, but you're afraid if you put this off any longer that you won't find the strength to tell her everything later. No, actually, everything isn't okay. Can I tell you something? Something important? Alex sits up, rubbing her eyes out of her sleep. For the rest of the night, you lay side by side, holding hands as you tell her everything. You tell her how it's more than just feeling sad sometimes, how you feel trapped by your own mind sometimes, how you feel nothing at all, and how you can't shake it off. You tell her how you've started going to therapy and how you feel embarrassed about it, and now it's working out for you. She listens the entire time, occasionally asking questions about how this or that works, or asking you to explain something further. She squeezes your hand and tells you she understands and that she's sad you didn't tell her sooner. After laying silent for a moment, the weight of what you did hits you. You desperately want her to say something, to tell you how she's feeling about all this, but you're too afraid that what the answer would be to ask. You start convincing yourself that now she knows everything, she's going to leave. There's no way someone could deal with how you really are. So how can I help? What do you need me to do, she asks. You think for a second, and the answer you come up with fills you with despair. I honestly don't know. I wish I knew how to fix this, but I don't know that you can do anything. I think it's something I just have to live with. She looks at you with sad eyes before kissing you on the forehead. Then I'll live with it with you. I don't know how you could possibly love me. She rolls over and wraps her arms around her neck, settling her head on top of yours. You don't need to. Just know that I do. It's a Friday night and you're laying across your bed feeling pathetic. As you were leaving work tonight, a group of coworkers asked if you wanted to join them for drinks. Feeling antisocial and put on the spot, you declined. You have a habit of doing this. You're often so convinced that you're weird and terrible and that any invitation to hang out will end in disappointment for those inviting you. You never feel like you know how to act in group outings, and you feel like a total creep since it seems to come so naturally to anyone who isn't you. You find yourself petrified of breaking some unknown social rule that you don't often go out. Now, however, you find yourself alone at home. Your brain has begun telling you how pathetic and sad you are for being unable to just be a normal person and go out with nice people. You can't figure out why you can't just go out and meet people and enjoy yourself. At the same time, you're also feeling like no one would possibly want you to hang out if they really knew you, because you're dull and weird anyways. You try your typical strategy and boot up Netflix to distract yourself from these feelings, but frustration with yourself builds, and you realize you have to do something else with your night. Anything else to take your mind off how awful and lonely you feel right now. What do? Get over it and go out to the bar with your coworkers, where your coworkers are hanging out anyways, as their struck out option. I'm not really a bar person anyways, I'll stay in and drink, but see if Attica's online. Call Alex. Drink. Go out somewhere, alone. Play with your cat. We've been drinking excessively in the last little bit. Perhaps we're starting to become dependent on it, so let's not pick that one. Alex I just spoke to. Attic's going through problems of his own. Going out somewhere alone. Let's play with the cat. Nights like this, you're very glad that you made the call to become a cat owner. Feeling too socially burnt out to interact with other people, you go find your cat. You get her to chase a laser pointer for a solid 30 minutes before she tires herself out. She pads over to you and collapses in a heap on your lap, purring loudly. Though initially she hated being picked up, you carry her to the computer desk with you and she doesn't object. Setting her down in your lap, you comfortably surf the internet for a while before heading to bed. Having her here with you has a calming effect, and it makes you feel a lot less alone. It's a cold Saturday afternoon. You've just arrived at Alex's apartment, and you're happy to finally see her after a week of absence due to your schedules not lining up due to work and school. You hug her in the doorway, but she breaks away sooner than normal and sits down on the couch as you take off your sneakers and lay them in the usual place right next to hers. "There's something I was hoping we could talk about, actually," she says. You instantly worry that you're being blindsided by a breakup conversation due to the sudden shift in tone, but she quickly smiles and puts you at ease once she sees all of the color leave your face. "It's nothing bad, I promise." With that, she leads you over to the couch and sits on the other end of it facing you. "So, I hope this doesn't freak you out, and if you feel like things are going too fast, just tell me." She talks faster than usual and fidgets. "We seem to have a lot of weeks like this, and they really suck. I was thinking I'd ask, since things are so strong with us, what are your thoughts on maybe moving in together?" It takes a few seconds to sink in and leaves you a bit shocked when it does. You were worried she wanted to spend less time with you, not more. "Do you want to?" you ask. "Well, yeah, I do. I mean, we'd have to sort out logistics and everything, but those are all things we can take care of." You start to walk through the steps of imagining the two of you living together. You love the thought of being able to wake up next to her every day and seeing her so often. However, the more you picture it, the more a few concerns become apparent. There are things she is insulated from, like the days you don't feel like you can even get out of bed, the nights your medication keeps you from being able to fall asleep. All of those moments you're stuck staring at the wall completely out of energy and feeling nothing. How would she handle that? How quickly would she want to get away? So, she starts, what do you think? Take your relationship to the next step with ease, move in together is her struck out option. Tell her you want to, but have concerns and discuss them honestly. Tell her you don't think it's a good idea for you right now. Decide to move in regardless of your worries. We've got 2 2s and a 3 going on there. I've noticed a few typos throughout this, but it doesn't matter. On one hand, it matters because the text is the entire core of this game. On the other hand, it's easily glazed over. Let's go discuss the concerns. You're really worried that if Alex were to live with you, she wouldn't be able to deal with your days of being unable to get out of bed, or nights where you can do nothing but stare at the wall in panic. Even though you've discussed your situation with her, you still fear that she doesn't realize the depths of how bad it gets. It's one thing for you to detail how you feel sometimes, and for her to see it pop up occasionally. It's an entirely different situation for it to be something she has to live with alongside you. Well, I'd like to, but I think it's best if we talk about it a bit more before committing to a decision. Though she seems a little defeated, you make it clear that you're not making excuses and actually mean that you want to talk. You reiterate a lot of what you've told Alex that night, and although she gets a little defensive and tells you that she knows all of that already, she confirms that she's willing to help you sort through your issues. I feel like you forget I love you sometimes. I know that there will be bad days, and I'd rather try to work through them with you. We can figure all this out together. Her words sway you, and you can't help but hold her close to you. Excuse me. It's December, and you've returned to your parents' house to celebrate the holidays with your family. Out the living room window, you can see a gentle flurry of snow drifting down to meet the pristine blanket of white from yesterday's unexpected Christmas Eve snowfall, and you quietly laugh to yourself at how incredibly cliché it seems. Still, as you sit down to dinner, you can't help but notice how being surrounded by family and the overly kitschy atmosphere your mom's decorations have created have actually made you feel relaxed and almost comfortable. Your mom is running around frantically checking the oven and the stockings and just generally trying to family time it up, while your dad sits at the head of the table drinking a beer and laughing with your brother Malcolm. His wife Karen's there too, who you've always gotten along well with, and your parents have even agreed to let you bring your kitten along. She's been darting in and out of people's legs and hopping into laps all night. As you thoughtfully munch away at your turkey, listening to the conversations around you, your thoughts drift back over the last few months. You think about how hard things had gotten, replaying over in your head some of your worst as well as some of your best memories. It seems like all of these things just came to a head over the past few months with a sudden flurry of relationship turmoil and professional anxiety, social stress, and above all an omnipresent sense of weight that it seems you have just recently become aware of. You're drawn out of your reverie by your dad's familiar booming laugh as some cheesy comment Malcolm made seems to have hit its mark. Sitting at that table, you're suddenly immensely glad for the chance to be able to ignore everything for an evening and not have to struggle trying to explain yourself for once. Fortunately, everyone seems to be content with laughing at each other's jokes and discussing favorite sports teams, and for a while you think you'll be able to get through dinner without any embarrassing personal intrusions. But sooner did the thought cross your mind that the table conversation trickles off, leaving a slightly awkward silence to descend upon the dinner. "So how are you doing these days?" your mom asks you pointedly. It's such a simple question, and one that you seem to have had to answer countless times recently. You take a moment to collect your thoughts, then looking up you take a deep breath. "Well, You've never really thought of yourself as a fighter. And even to say it now, it sounds hokey, but looking back on the past few months to where you are, now it really does feel like you've endured an immense struggle, and you look at where you are now with a sense of something that isn't quite pride. You still have your job and find it unpleasant, but you're surprised to find that going into work every day is no longer a monumental challenge. You've started adopting some clever techniques, like taking short 2-minute breaks every hour to break up the monotony, and you now view your job as just 8 short hours of your day, a compartmentalization technique Dr. Melville told you about that you found actually works quite well. You know this job isn't what you want to do for the rest of your life, and you've started actively looking for other positions, even attending a couple of preliminary interviews. You've started making an effort to go out with your friends more, while the social scene still makes you very uncomfortable sometimes. You're more and more able to let yourself just enjoy the company of your friends. In fact, your relationship with many of them has increased over the past little while. You still definitely have days where you flake out or don't feel up to hanging out, but for the most part, your friends are understanding and appreciate your communication. By far, the biggest change you've noticed in your life has been in your relationship with Alex. You were terrified of talking to her about everything at first, but looking back, you feel like it's only strengthened your relationship. She was always supportive of you emotionally, but lately the two of you have been even more in sync, and it's really starting to feel like you're building a life together. It even seems like the two of you have been making a more concerted effort to sync up your schedules and have been spending more and more of your downtime with each other. Pretty soon you think moving together may be a very real possibility. Dr. Melville has commented on how well you seem to be doing, and whether a result of the therapy, the medication, or both, you can't help but agree. With all that seems to have improved recently, it's sometimes difficult for you to think about the fact that you still have bad days. Sometimes even really bad days. This serves as a stark reminder of the fact that this will be something you likely have to deal with for the rest of your life. Depression is a battle, and though you're certainly ahead in the fight, you know the battle isn't ever going to be over. Sometimes even Alex can tell when things are going rough, despite your best efforts to the contrary. While you know that your depression can never be cured, you have a very strong support network in your friends, and even Malcolm, and armed with a newfound confidence in your friends and family, you accept that though the road may be rocky, it is at least not solitary. You meet your mom's gaze from across the table and muster up a smile. "I'm good, Mom," you tell her. She says nothing, but you can feel her smile from across the table. And finally, the epilogue. "We really want to thank you for taking the time to play Depression Quest. We realize it may not be the most enjoyable game you've ever played, or even easiest, and we sincerely appreciate your involvement. Like depression itself, Depression Quest does not have an end, really. There is no neat resolution to depression, and it was important to us that Depression Quest's own resolution reflect that. Instead of a tidy ending, we want to just provide a series of outlooks to take moving forward. After all, that's all we can really do with depression, just keep moving forward. And at the end of the day, it's our outlook and support from people just like you that makes all the difference in the world. Thanks again." The credits are displayed here, if anyone cares. Alright. I'm gonna take a shot, then I'll be back. Alright, so my final thoughts on Depression Quest. Let's start with, it's not a game. It's not a game at all. It's not a new concept at all, even. I would categorize it as a visual novel, actually. Visual novels are similar to those Choose Your Own Adventure books, if you remember those, where you would read a few pages and then you would have a few options on what to do next, and it would say, if you decide to do this, turn to whatever page. If you decide to do this, turn to whatever page. That type of thing. I would describe it very similar to that. However, visual novels still have a visual aspect to them, whether it be simply a still image on screen or video moving in the background or anything along those lines, as long as it's not too distracting from the text. I understand that would increase, unless any of the devs had artistic talent, they would have to hire someone on the side to do that, and that would potentially add an additional cost to the development. This isn't even a new concept for Steam, really. Steam is no stranger to visual novels as it is. For example, just did a quick search, and this one's not on there, but Katawa Shoujo is a very popular one. But on Steam, you can still find Sakura Spirit, Go-Go Nippon, Narcissu First and Second, and Analog, all of which have at least moderate or higher ratings. All in all, I would say it was half decent. It really was half decent. I don't at all, for 1 second, regret going through it. I don't want to say it was enjoyable, because, well, obvious reasons, but it was by no means dreadful. I wouldn't recommend it for everyone, because I feel there are a lot of people who would definitely not be able to take this seriously, and they wouldn't get the effect out of it desired by the end user or by the devs. The message was very well put across. They did exactly what they put out to do. They got their message across, which was the main point of the production. That's what it is, hands down. But the only thing I really can, I don't want to say grade this game on, as it had no graphics, it had a very simple soundtrack, although effective. It was all text, so the text needed to be perfect in order for this to really get across. Although the story was done really well, it got broken up a little bit just by some simple errors, whether it be spelling errors or punctuation errors or what along those lines. But in a visual novel, that's key. That's a must. That needs to be done perfectly. On her own website, where you can download this, or even through Steam, they support patching. You could release a simple patch to fix this without much difficulty whatsoever. Just get a few people to go through it quickly and proofread, and it's simple. It's simple. It's an easy fix. A lot of other visual novels that I've played, or even ones I've just so much as heard of, all have a save state function, so that if you're, say, an hour or two into the game, you don't know how much is left. You don't know if you can finish it in this one sitting. Maybe something will pull you away. Maybe you'll get a phone call. Maybe you'll get called into work. Maybe you just gotta get up and go do something else. This didn't support that. I had to write down the answers I chose and even go back through my own footage to find out what I had chosen so that I could pick the same choices and resume where I left off. I had to do this in 2 sittings. Really, overall, this game is receiving a lot of negative feedback. I'm on the Steam page right now, and it's got nothing but negative reviews except for 2 I'm seeing that are positive, and those 2 are sarcastic. But I did this in 2 hours. I'm not a quick reader, but it took me 2 hours. One here is done in 1 hour. half an hour, 0.3 hours, 0.1 hour, so 6 minutes. 6 minutes. You can't trust a review for someone who's played something for 6 minutes. 1 hour, 9.3 hours. I would take a listen to what they had to say. 0.7, 0.2, 0.1, 0.2, 0.1, 0.8, 0.1, and it's just a joke. Like, I don't mean their review is really poor and it's a joke. No, it is a literal joke. It's a reference to the story going on behind it. Okay, but this is something else I want to point out. A lot of these reviews I'm seeing, Steam users have something called a level. Levels are, you gain experience towards your levels. This is what I was talking about earlier with traditional RPGs. You gain levels on Steam by purchasing games, earning achievements, crafting badges, all that sorts of good stuff. Essentially just using Steam, you get levels. Steam is an entirely free service, although you have to buy your games off them, except not Depression Quest. Depression Quest is free. Some of these people are Steam level 2, Steam level 0, that's one of the 0.3. Steam level 32, I would trust that person. Steam level 20, Steam level 1, 34, 13, 11. Here's a 0. Steam level 0. Just to put this into perspective for you, I am considered an above average Steam user. I use Steam quite a bit. I have over 300 games on Steam, plus DLC, plus I'm always on it. I waste a lot of time on Steam. To put it into perspective for you, I'm level 16. So, to so much as level 4 or 5, so much would be simply buying a handful of games and just playing them, which is what a lot of people should be doing anyways, as that is what Steam essentially is. Let's not forget they're a game distribution. My bottom line point is, some of these people on here, I don't want to mock people and say they're casuals or something, but you really need to look at how experienced of a person with an opinion is. Should you really value the opinion of someone who has played the game for 6 minutes, or 12 minutes, or 18, or half an hour? Or if they have no other games on their Steam library, clearly they made an account just to go bash on this game. I find a lot of people are doing that. This game is receiving a lot of ill criticism, and it's not because of what the game is. It's all coming back to who Zoe Quinn is as a person. This is going back to the Zoe conspiracy. This is what I meant in the beginning by it's all politics. Now, as much as I liked this game, well, not game, you know what I mean, I don't agree with who Zoe Quinn is as a person. I don't agree with her actions. I don't agree with some of the things she's done. She claims to... I'm not even going to get into that too deeply, because like I said, I don't know who to believe on this information. But it has been confirmed that while in a committed relationship with, I believe her relationship with him was boyfriend, she had slept with 5 other men, all of which who have careers in gaming journalism. All of these 5 men then in turn positively helped Depression Quest get pushed. Now, with all this negative criticism on the Steam page, their influence is clearly a lot more than any other normal user. Now, I'm not saying that they did not like the game and their sexual relations are what got the game approved. It's very possible that they genuinely enjoyed the game and the sex was just a byproduct. That's totally possible. I mean, I'm not having sex with her, and I kind of liked it. I can't even say that through getting her game pushed professionally, she's generating additional revenue, she's making additional sales, because she isn't. Let's not forget, bottom line, Depression Quest is free. Whether through her site or through Steam, it's still free. There is a pay what you want option if you decide to donate to it. I don't know what the paid benefits include, but there is that option there. She has tweeted that she does make I don't know if it's a living or what it is, but she has tweeted that she makes money off the internet. But by the way she speaks, it sounds like it's not Sunday coffee money. It sounds more like rent money. There's no exact figures out there. That's understandable. You don't always want to disclose your financial information, especially in the situation she is currently in. But she does make some money off of this. A very negligible amount, and it's not a mandatory purchase. The only thing that also really discomforts me is she's also effectively suppressing information. There have been threads popping up on message boards all over the place. Like I mentioned before, Reddit, WizardChan, 4chan's various boards, B, V, and Poll. Poll is stupid to begin with, don't listen to them. B is stupid to begin with, don't listen to them. V's a little bit better, but not by a lot. As much as information can or may not be true, there are arguments and conflicting information all over the place. But regardless, I feel that you should still be able to access all of it, critically think and assess it, and come to your own conclusion. With Zoe getting information pulled, it really feels like she's hiding something. Like, not to call her a dictator or a fascist or anything along those lines, but ask many, I don't mean to sound racist or anything with this, but ask young Chinese folk about Tiananmen Square. I probably screwed that right up. Let me double check my facts. Yes, it is Chinese. Okay. You will find very little information within China about the '89 protests of Tiananmen Square, because the government is suppressing it. It sucked. It really sucked. Hands down, I don't think anyone can lobby in favor of what happened at Tiananmen Square. But being terrible or not, the information should still be there so that people can fully assess and get their own information from it. With Zoe suppressing information, it's only making her look more guilty in my eyes, personally. Like I said, I really don't agree with who she is as a person, but that all aside, Depression Quest is still alright. It genuinely is, and I feel many people are ripping on it unfairly without giving it proper due, without properly trying it. I feel it's almost like Nickelback. It's become popular to hate it. And that's what's happening now. Overall, if you're in a half-decent mood, take Depression Quest for a spin. I really urge you to. Don't do it in a good mood because it's going to bring you down. Don't do it in a bad mood because it will really bring you down. But it's really alright. It's alright.